Hi, this is Shauna, the CEO and founder of Fuel Talent. One of the things I have loved most in my 25-year recruiting career has always been the stories that people tell. Stories of leadership, career choices, company ideas, and team building. My inspiration for starting the What Fuels You podcast came from being curious about people's lives and wanting to help share their stories. What path brought them to this place? What decisions did they make that led to failures and successes? Who influenced those decisions, and what lessons were learned along the way? I hope you enjoy the What Fuels You podcast. Today's guest on the What Fuels You podcast is Tony Huang. Tony is the co-founder and CEO of Possible Finance, a financial technology company fighting to make financial services accessible and fair for all. Tony knew that he wanted to have some type of social impact in his career, so he had planned on becoming a teacher after graduating. This is when a serendipitous opportunity of planning an entrepreneurship conference on campus arose, and he discovered that he could use business as a conduit for social impact instead. After graduating from Harvard University, Tony joined a civic technology company called Axon that pioneered the idea of putting body cameras on police officers. This is also where he would meet his co-founders of Possible. They explored different ideas in how to use technology to serve lower income and minority communities. That is where they came up with the idea that blossomed into Possible Finance that it is today. Welcome, Tony.
Yeah, thank you, Shauna. Appreciate the warm introduction, and it's great to be here with you.
Yeah, good to see you. So I started the podcast with a little rapid fire. What's so funny is that I was helping a friend who's single do a match profile, and I'd never been on one of I've been married for a million years. I'm like old lady, but I was like, this is fun. The questions that they had her asking, I'm like, these would be good for the podcast. So they're not some of them are inspired by Match.com. I'm like, they're good questions. Okay, so if you had an extra hour in the day, what would you spend it on?
Ooh. Catching up with an old friend over a phone call.
Nice. What is a hobby, that you hope to pursue?
During COVID, I've been trying to pick up how to play the guitar. It's not going so well, so I'd want to get better at that.
Nice. That's a really good skill to have. My husband plays the guitar, and it's awesome when he pulls it out. What was your favorite subject that you studied in school?
I think in high school it was probably history. I'm a big history nerd, and in college it was psychology. Just how do people think and how do groups interact with one another was really interesting to me.
Yeah, I was going to be a psych major. I actually switched to sociology, which I know is made fun of, but I think it's also a fascinating subject, how cultures and groups work together.
Right.
But I do know that it is also close to my to where I was living, the building.
Yeah, and it's a little bit of history as well.
A little bit of history.
That's really interesting to me.
Yeah. This is my Debbie Downer question. What is your biggest regret?
Oh, that's a tough one. Honestly, I have very few regrets in life. I want to focus on the present, and I learn from every mistake. But if I could convince my 17-year-old self to major in computer science, that would have been pretty helpful.
Yeah.
Now
that you're in technology now,
right.
Now it's oh yeah, I've got the perspective now. Is there a job that you would do for no money? And if so, what would that be?
Yeah, I think my job now, to be honest, if I could, there's no better job that I could imagine. And, I love what we're doing. I love the mission. I love the impact. I love the team. I love the personal challenge and learning that I've experienced over the last 3 years. So
yeah,
it's really the best job I've ever had.
I really can't believe it's been such a short period of time and all that you've accomplished. And I can't wait to dig into to the story. What's a current vice? You have to have one, because I know I've got plenty I'm trying to get rid of during COVID.
Shauna, you're so good at asking questions. When I get nervous, I think I tend to bite my nails. I know it's gross as an adult, but I think I've had this habit since I was a kid. And
yeah, I used to bite my nails. Now you can see I've got very beautiful nails, but I bit them and then I put on that gross stuff. It actually helps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I understand.
So my girlfriend's she's been catching me in the act and helping me. And trying to play the guitar without nails is actually pretty tough. So I
Yeah.
think it would help my guitar efforts as well.
Yeah. Now you've got a mission at the end, right? I get
That's
it.
right. That's right. A
So
motive.
tell me all about, yeah, you're motivated by it. So tell me all about your childhood. You're raised in Boston. Do you have the no Boston accent? A Boston?
No, no Boston accent. I was actually born in China during the one child policy. And then my parents immigrated to Cambridge, Massachusetts. My dad was a research scientist at MIT. He was a physicist in China, and kind of gave up the opportunity to advance his career in China to really start kind of at the bottom here in the US. Luckily at a great establishment, but just working in a physics lab here. And that's how I ended up in the public school system in Cambridge, Massachusetts as a
Yeah.
as an 8-year-old.
And so you moved here at age 8. Did you speak English?
Not at all. So I learned how to, do my ABCs here in Cambridge when I came. I mean, I remember crying and my mom forcing me as an 8-year-old to learn the ABCs.
Yeah.
And then
Did
they
you
just
watch
sent me
TV?
to TV was how I learned English. Yeah,
Everybody
it
says
worked
that.
so well.
Everybody I've interviewed on the podcast who came from another country who didn't speak English, and I say, like, how'd you learn? Because that sounds really intimidating to me. And mostly have been bullied, frankly, for not speaking English. All said that they watched like soap operas or like Sesame Street.
hmm
Like, what did you watch?
hmm Uh, I watched a lot of The Simpsons as a 9-year-old. I'm not sure if that was completely appropriate, but it was a cartoon show. So, uh, and just all these like game shows and Saturday cartoons, of course. Another thing my parents did very early on, it was maybe a month of me being in the U.S. They sent me to an all-day summer camp, the YWCA in Cambridge, um, and just like threw me in there into the deep end of the pool, for 8 hours, 9 hours a day. So
Wow.
you kind of figure it out as a 9-year-old.
Yeah.
So very grateful to my parents having
Yeah.
made the sacrifice to come to America and to give me a better future.
And how does it shape your, I guess, this is maybe too intense, especially right now because we're recording it and we're waiting for the results of the
Mm,
presidential election. But like, how does it shape your experience as an American, having come from another country? Like, do you
yeah.
feel more American, or does China feel like home still? Because that's your roots.
No, I definitely I definitely I am American, and I'm very much in touch with what it means to be American. My parents made the decision to be American, and when you have that active choice, you really evaluate your decisions and you weigh the pros and cons. And um, I think there's no one out there that's more patriotic than my dad for this country and for the love of democracy and what it means for democracy to be in America, having lived and grown up, in a communist country. And he actually was a part of the Tiananmen Square, protests as a student
Oh,
at Peking University at the
wow.
time. And yeah, that he was very, politically active and very aware of what was going on in the country and was trying to make it better. And, it's probably one of the reasons why he decided to stay in America when he had the opportunity. So for me, having seen their struggles and having a more, I guess, international mindset growing up, it was really illuminating and it made me appreciate, the unique aspects of being American, which, I deeply cherish today. And, I hope we're fighting to protect our democracy and these ideals.
Absolutely. And did they try to seek out a community, like a Chinese American community, or did you guys just kind of
hmm
assimilate and just kind of try to blend in?
Luckily, in Cambridge, it's a very diverse community, not just of Asian Americans, but of refugees from Southeast Asia, from African countries. It's just a great melting pot for me to grow up in. So we did get a lot of experiences with other Chinese American families like us, as well as people from all over the world, which I think
Yeah.
was really really formative for me growing up. As a kid in Cambridge and having friends and exposure to just all types of different cultures and backgrounds.
Yeah, I'm sure. And are your parents just must be so proud of you now? Are they still alive and thriving and still
They
in the
are.
Boston area?
They are. Yep. They still reside in Boston. Luckily, they're retired now. I had the good fortune of taking care of their mortgage last year, and that was just an incredible feeling for me. I'm the only child, so making sure my parents were taken care of, they no longer had to work, was really meaningful, and
I can
they're
only
happier than they've
imagine.
ever been. Right. They're
Oh,
living their best lives,
they're living
which
their
is just
best
incredible
lives.
to see. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And so tell me about your childhood as far as I know that you have a family of educators around you.
Hmm.
Most of them are teachers, and you thought, I read in the intro that you were going to go that path.
Hmm.
And at what age did you decide, kind of like, I think I want to be a teacher?
Yeah. My grandparents in China were all teachers on both sides of the family. My uncles were teachers. My great aunts were teachers. Both my parents had taught at some point in their lives. My dad was
Wow.
a college teacher, um, and my parents actually met, in high school. In this one small town in China where my mom's dad and my mom's mom were both teachers, and they taught
Wow.
both my parents. So
Oh, that's
so the
so cute.
yeah, education and educators is just deeply, deeply respected in my family, and there's a track record there. So I've always thought about becoming an educator and a teacher, um, and it was just really interesting of a profession and the ability to give back. I think the ability to influence others for the better. Um, was kind of inculcated in me as a young person. Growing up with family members who are all in that profession, um, and luckily, I got the opportunity to do some teaching while I was an undergrad. So I definitely feel like
Yeah.
I scratched that itch, and almost came very, very close to becoming a teacher rather
Yeah.
than working in the technology space.
Yeah. So I read that you were teaching fourth grade at MLK Elementary where you went. And so
Hmm.
I also read that you went to Boston Latin School. Tell me about that school
Yeah,
and where was that relative to Cambridge? Were you just like commuting in
sure.
or how did that work?
Yeah, so I grew up in Cambridge for elementary school and went to the Martin Luther King Jr. Elementary School in Cambridge. MLK Elementary was very diverse, as you can imagine, and a lot of refugee kids as well from all over the world. Um, and it was an amazing experience as a kid. Uh, and the school MLK was actually 2 blocks away from Harvard University, Harvard College to be specific. Um, I had the good fortune of attending Harvard later, but it didn't. It wasn't lost on me how far apart these two institutions were. MLK Elementary and Harvard College, despite the close physical proximity, it was just a different world to me and the kids in my community who grew up in Cambridge. So um, it was just an amazing opportunity to go back to my alma mater, MLK Elementary, to teach fourth grade. Where I had attended fourth grade. I actually ran into my fourth grade teacher while I was there.
Oh,
Yeah, and I got to volunteer a lot as an undergrad at Harvard through the the PBHA programs on campus, where we brought Harvard students to various housing projects across Cambridge and Boston to mentor inner city youth. And I had actually experienced some of those mentorship as a kid, going to MLK Elementary and Boston Latin. So it was just a really special way for me to give back.
oh
That felt
yeah.
incredibly fulfilling. So I was studying developmental psychology. I was working in labs, doing research with kids, and thought I wanted to do Teach for America and become a teacher like the rest of my family. So that was kind of my path until, I stumbled into a social enterprise conference on campus. I got to meet these just brilliant founders who not only were building businesses that were really interesting, but were having social impact in ways that I deeply, deeply respected, and were having impact in ways that were way bigger than the impact that I was having, running nonprofits on campus and as a teacher. And that's when I kind of realized that a sustainable business model is the biggest amplifier to social impact you can have. So I didn't do Teach for America or become a teacher. I ended up pivoting my career at that point and joined, a civic technology company that was working on body cameras for police officers.
Yeah.
And the rest is history.
Yeah, Axon's really cool. I think I told you when we were catching up that they've been a client of ours, and I remember at the GeekWire event they got like coolest office space or something, and
that's right.
And that office is just super cool, and all the people that work there that we've worked with over time are amazing. I can see that being a really cool company to cut your teeth in. But like, how do you even get that job? I did read that you did Code Fellows, but that's kind of not usually as a recruiter.
That
I can
was
say
after.
Oh, okay. Because I was like, usually that's not quite enough.
Right.
Also saw that you got an executive certificate from MIT and Berkeley. Like, I'm just curious, like how you prepped yourself to get the role at Axon, and how'd you get it?
It's so random. Going to a place like Harvard for undergrad, there's kind of this expectation. You go into fields like investment banking or consulting.
For sure.
And to be honest, a lot of the
Goldman or McKinsey.
right. The three big consulting firms recruit heavily on campus, and I had met, as a freshman at Harvard, these roommates and colleagues who knew exactly what those career tracks were, and they had family members who worked in investment banking or in finance and were guiding them to go down these career paths. And I didn't honestly have that support system, and my parents didn't know what a consultant did or what an investment banker really did. Those things just weren't on my radar. So that's like, I think actually one of the examples of what it means to enter into a place like Harvard, given your diverse backgrounds and how it impacts your career choices. So I was on the teaching path, and it just so happens that a friend of mine on campus, ended up getting a job at Axon through someone, in the fraternity we were in. The founder and CEO of Axon was actually a Harvard alum, Rick Smith, and he's just an incredible mentor of mine, who ultimately convinced me to join Axon for an internship, and then gave me an offer to join that team. And after that summer internship, I didn't look back. I basically signed that offer right away to come back.
That's amazing.
Continue that mission.
So it's like almost like a working MBA in tech. Like you're working.
That's
and learning,
right. Exactly.
You're learning on the job.
Yep. That's right. So coming from Harvard, when in 2011, 2012, everybody was still very singular minded, focused on finance or law or consulting. I think the Harvard Innovation Lab, was opened my senior year or the year after I graduated. So technology as a field wasn't established on campus like it was at Stanford or University of Washington at the time, at Harvard. And it was kind of a contrarian and left field move to go into tech right out of school. And people are like, what are you doing? Like, what is this? Never mind, it wasn't Facebook or Microsoft or even Amazon. It was this no-name company that no one had heard of, in Arizona of all places, without a track record of really delivering software technology. But that summer and getting exposure to just how mission driven the individuals on that team were. I was on the team that of people who originally came up with the concept of, hey, we should put a camera sensor on every police officer in the country to make policing more transparent, for both sides of the camera. But, in particular, we knew it could help minority, lower income communities here in the US. So that mission was just so amazing to me. And I found, the perfect balance of business and social impact in Axon at the time. When we first joined, it was definitely not at all apparent that body cameras were going to be a success. And
and now it's like you can't see a police officer without an Axon camera.
Right. Totally.
Like mainstream now.
And I think once you've felt the real world impact of your work, like I have with seeing body cameras on the nightly news, on YouTube, on Facebook, and on the street on a daily basis, and just having that wow moment, like, wow, we built that. That's a really special moment. And once you've had that feeling of, really being able to impact society in a positive, meaningful, tangible way,
Yeah.
it's hard to do anything else that doesn't have that outcome. So
Yeah.
it's certainly a one-way street where you feel the impact of your work and you want to continue to make an impact. And ultimately, that's why we decided on creating Possible Finance.
Yeah. Tell me about the how you came up with the idea for Possible Finance and how many co-founders, and
Hmm.
tell me about that whole beginning. Like, walk me through. I remember the beginning of
Sure.
starting my company. Those were my favorite, like, energizing moments
Hmm.
of the business. I'd love to know how you came up with the name and just all of it.
Hmm. So I'm one of the co-founders, one of
Yeah.
the three co-founders of Possible Finance. My other two co-founders, Prasad and Tyler, were early software leaders at Axon, where we all worked. Collectively, I think we spent 26 years working there to make body cameras a reality. And they were actually the very first two software hires that helped scale the original software team. I was an early product manager. Um, we just got along really well, and Axon was growing very, very rapidly. When we moved up to Seattle to help jumpstart the Seattle product and engineering office, I think it had maybe 10 people in the Smith Tower. Now there's about 300 people today. So very, very fortunate to have been a part of that ride and to have learned many, many challenges and or overcome these challenges, learn new skills, and been in the trenches together for so many years and for so many tough projects. And it just kind of came time, by the end of 2017, we realized that pretty much every police agency was going to have a body camera, and it was time for us to go do something in a different space, to learn
Yeah.
something.
It's a different
Frankly,
phase of the business too. You're like, there's the building
yeah.
and then there's the
Hmm.
maintaining.
Right,
Totally
right.
different skill set and different energy, and you're still, young in your career and ready to grow and learn.
Exactly. The three of us were very much builders, and
Hmm.
we were really excited about earlier stage products and projects. Um, so we got together, and we started thinking about, what can we do to impact lower income minority communities in very much the same way that we had done with body cameras. And as a product manager, working in the kind of law enforcement space, you go on these ride-alongs where you sit in the cop car and you go wherever the police officers go to observe, their challenges, to see how they use your product, really embed yourself. Um, so I've done these ride-alongs in many neighborhoods across the country, in metropolitan areas, urban areas. You're not spending time in upscale neighborhoods a lot of times. You're in kind of the poorest communities across the country, um, and you're not arresting people all the time, or even most of the time. What you're doing is going into those communities to build relationships. You're talking to people. You're learning about what the kids in this neighborhood are up to, and you're building these really valuable relationships with the community. You're trying to build trust, um, and that allowed me to be exposed once again to just really how these lower income communities live and thrive. And one thing you realize, that there are really very few bank branches in lower income neighborhoods across America. But there are these payday loan stores, pawn
Hmm.
shops, title lending, check cashing. I mean, there's more payday loan stores in this country than there are Starbuckses.
Yeah,
So it's
I
just an
read that.
incredible
I read
fact.
that. And McDonald's and Starbucks. That's just crazy. That's
Right.
crazy.
And what we realized was just that there's so many Americans who don't use the same financial services that you and I do. And frankly, they don't have access to it because their credit score is non-existent, or their credit score is below 600. And
Yeah.
actually 91 million Americans fall into that category. It's not just a small sliver of the
Yeah.
population. It's a major, major portion of
It's
Americans today.
almost a third of the about.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I did read that half of Americans, and this made me really sad, can't afford an emergency expense over $400.
That's
And
right. That's exactly it.
then seeing the statistic of these banks, that they're taking in 25 billion in overdraft fees from these low
Hmm.
income Americans. It gets you right in the heart. Like, it's just
Right.
unacceptable. And it does
Right.
feel overwhelming, and like, what do you do? So is this the data that you were taking in when you were
Yep.
like to think about
That's right.
possible?
That's right. So in 2017, we looked at some trends. Um, one, we studied microfinance and how it's done internationally. And it's interesting when, when microfinance is done in Kenya or in Southeast Asia, it's touted as this really valuable thing, and it is. It's economic empowerment. It fundamentally lifts up communities and give people opportunity to improve their lives. Yet when microfinance is done in America, a lot of times it's called payday lending or check cashing, and
Yeah.
the system doesn't quite work as well. So we were trying to apply this concept of microfinance and the best practices of technology to Americans right here at home, because you're exactly right. The average American can't afford an emergency expense that's greater than $400. Like, we have a microfinance challenge right here at home. And talking about being American and having always worked on issues that fundamentally we're hoping to improve the lives of Americans. We're just very, very passionate about trying to tackle this problem of financial services right here at home.
It's incredible. And so you came up with the idea, and then together you formed a company, and then did you bootstrap it, or
Yep.
did you go raise money, or how did you get it started?
Yep. So I do want to give credit to one particular individual that's a mutual friend of ours, Andy Liu, who founded Unlock Venture Partners here in Seattle. We were a team looking for an interesting social-driven idea when we linked up with Andy in the middle of 2017, and it was actually Andy who gave us a lot of encouragement to say, hey, you should look into this space. You would really find this impactful, and it's just rife with these issues. So we actually linked up with Andy. He's a small co-founder in the company, and him and his partners Sanjay and Razi are crucial to the success that we experienced. Even today, Andy's still on my board.
Yeah, and I'm sure he's the most impactful board member ever, because he's just like the wise one, and he's got operating experience. He's not just, and he's strategic. He's got intros. That guy knows everybody.
Totally. Shout out to Andy Liu. If you're an entrepreneur listening to this, you got to reach out to Andy. And,
well,
Razi
he's a big fan of yours. He's told me about you for a while, and I was so excited when he introduced us, because I've been tracking your career and tracking you, and I love the story that I read about. Tell me about the early days when you were customer kind of beta testing, standing outside these loan, that's the kind of entrepreneurship story I love.
Right. I hope I don't get myself in trouble with some of these stories, but
I found it online, so it's all good.
Yeah, when we were as a product manager, my first instinct in learning more about this problem, how do we go validate the problem and the pain points and the potential features we can build? So I started standing outside payday loan stores here in Seattle, money trees. There's one on 3rd Ave, and try to visit and go inside, talk to tellers, notice the ambiance, the marketing material, try to talk to people online. And it was just kind of honestly a painful process. No one wants to talk to you. It's raining in Seattle. They're just trying to get their stuff done and go home and take care of their families, right? Understandably. So it was pretty painful to do that in person. Not for the lack of trying. It was just it was hard. And I realized that hey, this is really painful. How can we short circuit this process? Well, as it turns out, every brick and mortar payday loan store in this country has a Yelp page, and on Yelp, people leave reviews, and you can discern from these reviews whether they had a positive experience there or negative experience, whether they're to get a payday loan or check cashing or Western Union, whether it was their first time being there or whether they're a longtime customer. So these incredible data points were right there online. And rather than standing outside a payday loan store, in pouring rain in Seattle, I ended up getting on Yelp and sending out tens of thousands of messages. Turns out you can direct message Yelpers. So we DM'd tens of thousands of Yelpers all across the country, those who had left reviews recently about their payday loan experience. And that's how we lined up our first, couple of dozen user research calls to validate the problem.
Oh, I love that. And what did you say in those emails? Be like, hey, it's me, Tony. Like, how do you even do
Yeah,
that?
right.
How do you get them to
Right.
respond like another spam? I get so many, you know?
Totally, totally. And our customers aren't, the most trusting individuals. They get burned a
Right?
lot.
Like,
There's a
how
lot
did
of
you,
identity
right?
theft,
Of course.
right? There's a lot of fraud. They've experienced just negative experiences with financial services. Um, so I think our approach has always been from a place of sincerity. We genuinely want to help our customers. We're not in it just to make money. We're in it to have as big of an impact, social impact, and help improve people's lives. And I think people can feel that. People who interview with Possible can feel that that's our culture. Our customers can feel that in the way we interact with them, in the way we design our product. And that's been true since day one. When we reach out to customers, we share who we are. Like, hey, we are technologists. We know nothing about payday lending at the time. We knew nothing about your experiences. We just want to learn and help make your experience better.
That's amazing. And the vulnerability and also the opportunity to let someone teach anything. I think people love to do that, like to give you that gift of knowledge of what their experience is and to feel like it's going to land in a place that's potentially going to improve their lives is amazing. So tell our listeners, I've obviously done my own research and this business inside and out. We could talk about it all day, but tell our listeners what the exact business does and what the business model is.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So our business is to provide affordable short-term credit to lower income, hardworking individuals. The challenges with existing short-term credit options like a payday loan or an overdraft fee or one of those new age payroll advance apps today is that these products are all single payment loans in that you borrow $200 in a few days, you return $200 plus fees, plus interest, plus tip, whatever it is. And for a lot of people, it's very difficult to do that all at once. And you effectively get constantly behind with your other bills.
Right.
Because you're never able to catch your breath. So what's characteristic of a payday loan debt cycle is a customer borrows the same $200 or $300 every 2 weeks. With every paycheck, they're borrowing the same amount of money. They're paying fees every single time because they can never get out of that cycle. And another problem is no matter how many times you successfully repay a payday loan or an overdraft fee or a payroll advance app, you can never build credit history. So it's kind of a catch-22. You have to use these types of financial services products that are more expensive and more harmful because you don't have good credit. Yet no matter how many times you successfully repay, you can never build credit to qualify for anything better.
Right.
So you're always stuck having to use these products. And it's almost in the design
and then your
system.
credit score is going down, down, down. And then it's a whole chicken and egg thing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, right. And even if you're trying to apply to, a traditional lender, a lot of times what they do is they do a hard credit check. And then they deny you. And that hard credit check goes on your credit report, which further brings it down.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. You
There's
are
just no
solving
opportunity.
such a crazy, huge problem. I have a feeling that you're going to literally take over this whole space. This is insane. I mean, I kind of got it, but just hearing it, I'm like, this is incredible. And obviously, I feel really blessed that it's not a challenge that I'm in every day personally, but for those people, I read that you've made, this may be outdated, but 13,000 loans. Is that right?
So it's a little bit outdated.
Yeah.
What we do, Shauna, is we provide, on average, it's a $200 loan, but we allow all of our customers to repay instead of their very next paycheck in smaller bites, generally across their next 4 paychecks.
Yeah.
And that spreads the cost burden across those 4 paychecks and allow our customers to fundamentally catch their breath and break that cycle of debt.
Yeah.
While also with every successful on-time installment payment, we report to all 3 major credit bureaus, TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian, to help our customers build up credit history. And the other unique thing is we don't do a hard credit pull or even any credit pull with the traditional bureaus, TransUnion, Equifax, or Experian. When we first ask the customer to apply, we have developed a novel machine learning technology to link directly with the customer's existing financial history and make a really intelligent credit decision in real time that doesn't require looking at the customer's traditional credit reports or doing a hard pull. So no hard pull up front, but the ability to build credit history. And more importantly, we give our customers money rather than, a secured credit card or a secured
Yeah.
loan where they have to pay into it. And if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you don't have money saved aside
Right.
just to build up your credit score. That's just not a reality.
Right.
So, we're actually providing what I believe is the most realistic and the most accessible way for lower income Americans to build or rebuild their financial health.
Yeah.
And that's been a winning formula for us.
It's an incredible formula. And I read that you have, I think there were like almost 40,000 reviews on the app. And and for the very few that were not, stellar, it was, I think, people who just didn't understand how to use the app. And like pretty much I read several of those too. And they were just people who didn't understand what they were doing and expected something that wasn't what your business does. But I don't know if you saw this one, because I'm sure you're not reading all of them, or maybe you are, because it literally says to reach out to CEO at Possible Finance. Maybe it is you.
I do talk to a lot of customers.
Okay,
I think I've talked to 40 customers in the past month.
Oh gosh, well, of course you have. But it said, it was way longer than this, but this is just a little nugget. It said it was like borrowing money from a really good friend and having that friend increase your credit score. I really thought you couldn't beat that, because it's like nobody really wants to be in this position. Nobody wants to have to deal with the bureaucracy, the paperwork, the judgment, the shame, just all of it. And to make it that easy, and several talked about the speed, how quickly they were like, oh my gosh, this is like the, Wizard of Oz. Like, who's the person behind the curtain that's just like suddenly have this money, and the kind of breathing out, exhale. Theme that I was seeing throughout the reviews was incredible. I can imagine that being a real kind of would get my juices flowing as the CEO. It's really exciting.
Totally. I mean, it feels amazing to hear these stories on a daily basis. That's what keeps our team going. I think so to date we've given out more than 500,000 loans to customers.
Well, yeah, I know. I've read that you're growing 50% month over month. Is that accurate, or is that even low?
There was definitely a moment over the last few years where we were growing at that pace. But I think those were probably in the slightly earlier days than we are today. But we're still growing quite fast. We raised a Series B from Union Square Ventures, really at the height of the COVID kind of economic crisis in April. So we're just really fortunate to be in this position to help our customers in this time of need.
Absolutely. And what's been the thing that, aside from the social impact and the good juju of working with two people that you trust as your co-founders and finding Andy, all these things kind of lining up, what's been the thing that's kind of surprised you most that you weren't expecting from this type of role, as being a CEO? As far as like the good and the bad, like I've loved this part, I was not expecting to hate this part.
When I reflect back on exactly 3 years of Possible Finance for me personally, the thing that stands out the most is this personal journey that I've been on in terms of my personal growth. You hear about personal growth from other founders when you first start. Hey, be prepared for that journey ahead. The challenges, the roller coaster ride, the self-discovery. But that wasn't really the purpose, of us starting Possible. We were very focused on the mission and the ability to help and impact as many people as we can. It wasn't about our personal growth at all. But looking back, the thing that surprised me most is how much personal growth I've experienced as a person, not just as a CEO, but as a human being over the last 3 years. And I think that's been incredibly rewarding. It would not have happened without me and our founders and our team challenging me and challenging us on a daily basis to get better and to continue to learn. So that's been incredibly fulfilling for me as an individual. So that's definitely been the biggest surprise out of all this. And of course, I'm still on that journey of self-discovery and of growing.
It doesn't end.
No, I've heard it described as just a spiral staircase. You just keep on going up and up, and you kind of go in circular. So you feel like you've made some discovery,
and then you're like, oh wait, in my 40s, I don't really want to bring that into my 40s, like my stuff. And then you're like,
Mhm.
oh wait, no, okay, fine. In my 50s, it's just, I think that, yeah, it's a constant evolving experience. And I think it's great to be able to be so reflective and so present, because you're
Mhm.
drinking from the fire hose, as they say, and you're just like really on this rocket ship. And to be
Mhm.
able to take a moment um, to just even have any sort of reflective time is amazing. I am curious in the business. Well, you were going to say something else about like what you haven't liked. I guess there's probably stuff that
Mm.
you're like, oh, I don't know if I like. I think we talked a little bit about, and I don't know if you want me to say this on the podcast, so we can always cut it out. But you were just like, I kind of don't love the front facing. Like I got to be like the whatever, even being on a podcast, or the
Mm.
the
Mhm.
attention
Yep.
part. Like you want to
Yeah.
be the attention on the customer, the attention on the
Right.
employees.
Right.
Um,
So we've been um, we've been fairly focused, as a company, and Shauna, this is the first podcast that I've ever done.
Woohoo!
Uh,
I owe this out.
yeah,
Another Andy Lou shout out, or I guess
I know.
this might be just a Tony shout out, because you were brave and vulnerable and willing, and I'm super grateful. And yeah, I can say I knew you
Well,
went.
I know. You're my first, and please go easy on me. Take it easy, and no, it's been great. But the reason that I haven't done any interviews, or we're not out in front with a lot of publicity, um, is because I just really believe in focusing on the product experience and on our customers.
Hmm.
So I think one thing I learned really well from my former managers, um, Rick Smith at Axon, and Luke and others, is servant leadership, and really putting your team uh, in front of your own interests, and
Totally.
making sure that um, you lead by example.
Yeah.
So the culture that we have at Possible is very much, salt of the earth. We focus on our customers. We focus on the work. It's very low ego. We are, uh, generally there to support one another rather than fight for fiefdom or credit or anything like that.
Yeah.
So that's it's been really special for me to just over the last 3 years really focus inward on our business. Now, of course, there are times where it's in the best interest of the business for me to speak publicly or do those things. I'd say I'm naturally not I don't gravitate towards those types of events or opportunities. Um, and first foremost, I need to make sure that my team is taken care of, and
Yeah.
internal systems issues are addressed first. And
Yeah.
that's always been more important for me personally. So
Yeah.
over time, though, we've developed really great people within Possible to handle issues, to continue scaling the product, to continue building this incredible mission. And it's given me a little bit more opportunity and time as well to speak and do more public facing
Yeah.
events
Well,
like this. So
I'm glad I'm your first, and hopefully I'm taking
yeah.
it easy on you. So the people that I did read about, your customers that um, that you hold so dear, how do they even find out about you? You guys target them on
Hmm.
Instagram or Facebook, or
Hmm.
what are
Yep,
your
that's a great question.
advertising or marketing? Like how do they even discover that this is
Yep.
an option?
Yeah, so our biggest channel is actually organic. So 40% of our customers who find us, or who use Possible each month, new customers who use Possible each month, um, find us. They're organic customers. When I first started, there was a very well-known VC in the consumer fintech space who said, Tony, nothing really grows virally or by word of mouth in your space. People are just ashamed of the fact that they're borrowing money, and they don't want to talk about it. It's not something you want to talk about. Hey, I got a payday loan here, or I have to use this thing because I'm not able to pay for something. Well, as it turns out, if you help people in a fair way and you leave an impression, and you're so different from the existing status quo, and you help them boost their credit score, sometimes for the first time in ever or in decades, that's something they're really proud of, and they're going to tell their friends, family, and coworkers about it. So we have really incredible word of mouth growth. people find us in the App Store. People are starting to find our website. And that's been an incredible channel for us. And it's incredible validation for our team and for our product of having strong product market fit and really solving genuine pain points for our customers.
Yeah.
But we also grow through other channels, such as Facebook, and we have a number of channels that our growth team are currently testing.
Yeah. Interesting. So we've talked a lot about the customers, and I love what you've built, but as a recruiter, I feel like it's necessary to kind of go to what you touched on briefly, which is your culture. And so I'm curious, you said, I don't know what word you said, something like down to earth, maybe. How do you even vet for that when you're recruiting? Like, what types of people, how would you describe a possible employee? Like the ideal, someone's listening to this, like, I want to work at that company. And you're like, actually don't apply if you're X. Like, obviously no assholes, but like, what else? Like, what's a possible employee?
Well, we definitely have a kind of that, no asshole policy. We care a lot about our culture and our ability to work together as a team. I would say, for me personally, I gravitate towards people who are, a little bit understated, who maybe are less proven and have somewhat of a chip on their shoulder.
Something to prove, yeah.
Yeah, very high capacity to learn and to grow. So I gravitate towards those types of individuals, rather than kind of the individual that's been there, done that. They've worked at a lot of the best companies in the industry, and have a lot of experience, but also potentially a lot of baggage and existing ways of doing things.
That you don't want them to be no entitlement. Yeah.
Certainly no entitlement.
How much do you think your experience, and this might come off wrong, but I recruited for many years in New York, and I recruited in like investment banking and management consulting, and I had so many candidates that were pedigreed, out of the Ivy Leagues, and several that had what you're talking about, that kind of entitled, like, well, I've already kind of paid my dues, so now I'm ready for this. And you're so not that person. You're so humble and show so much gratitude. Do you almost feel that you shy away from candidates who have too much pedigree, or like you're almost penalizing them, or is it a vetting of like, well, at least I know they're smart?
I certainly, candidly, if we see, a Harvard MBA resume, or, someone who comes from, one of the big consulting firms, we don't shy away from it. We think that's great. It's a great training ground. It's a great network of people. It shows a certain level of rigor and intelligence and grit to get there. But the first thing we do is to make sure that there's not an ego or a sense of entitlement. And the way we do that is by focusing on their ability to buy into the mission. We have a lot of people who come to us who've worked in nonprofits, or who've been teachers, or a few people who've actually started their own organizations to do lending to lower income individuals right here in America as an alternative to payday loans. And they understand these challenges that we're tackling very, very well. And they're just passionate, regardless of which seat they're in on the bus, about helping us towards our mission. And that's the culture that I certainly like to build. But we do have, we do recruit from great universities, and we do recruit from places like Facebook. I think that when you talk about earlier, the impact we have on our customers, like, being able to build credit for the very first time, like, that's a very empowering experience. In fact, one of our cultural values is empower with trust. And, what that means for our customers is that a lot of times we're the only company that's empowering our customers with trust. They've been denied by everyone else. They get denial letters left and right, and they're just so dejected and down. And they never, it's almost like that sense of rejection is what's holding them back. It feels just impossible to make progress.
The lack of hope, the lack of getting over the hump.
Because no one believes in you. No one is believing in you.
Yeah.
And no one is giving you a chance. And when we say, hey, we will trust you with this money, like, we trust you to pay it back. We trust you to do with this money to improve your lives, to feed your family, to do whatever you need to do. That act of trust that we place in our customers is incredibly empowering for our customers. And a lot of times it helps them jumpstart their journey towards, viewing financial services in a different way, or viewing their, credit score in a different way, and allows them to finally, start improving their financial health long term. So that's kind of why we named the company Possible Finance as well. So many Americans have, feel that just improving their financial health is impossible. It's just, it's not something they've ever been taught. No one in their family has ever had good credit scores, or maybe even have ever used a credit card, have ever owned a home. So it's just something that's so out of reach for millions of Americans, and we want them to have this impression that it's possible, with Possible Finance.
Oh, I love that. It's such a good name. I mean, it really is. So how would you say, I know that we were giving Andy Liu literally like ridiculous amounts of mojo here, but this is like our fourth shout out for him. But I know Andy, I don't know your other board members, but now this is shifting gears toward, I always think through the perspective of like, who might be listening to this? Because I really have no idea. I'm thinking about it as a mom, like, okay, what nuggets can I give for my kids? And then other entrepreneurs, maybe someone who's looking for a job. Or potential hire or potential client, customer for you. So for other entrepreneurs, as they're thinking about putting together, their pitch deck, and they're going to go out and they're going to fundraise, a lot of entrepreneurs I've talked to have talked about the lessons learned, like what they would do differently, or how to think about not just, oh my gosh, you're willing to give me money, like I'll take it. How to pick board members and investors, and what attributes you should think about, and just like lessons learned. If you were to go do, okay, now I'm going to sold Possible or took Possible public. Now I'm on my next one. This is what I'm going to do differently this time.
Well, I'd certainly think twice about raising venture funding
at all,
because I think at all. I think with that comes certain expectations of growth, and it works for us with Possible Finance, but we were first-time founders without much resources or money to our name. So it wasn't like we could have really done much, especially in the lending space where it's very capital intensive, right from the get-go. So it wasn't really an option for us to not raise venture funding, and that's the path we went down. But if I could build another business with my co-founders, which I'd love to one day, I think for me it's actually making sure that you control your destiny. And this is something we think long and hard about at Possible, where, we are providing credit, but we also have the tools and the systems in place, the technology in place to charge more and to scale in a way that maximizes, profit rather than impact to our customers, in a way that could be harmful to our customers, like many of our competitors. And it's really important to find investors and board members who genuinely believe the same things you do, and genuinely prioritizes impact over, profits, or short-term profits at least. So to find the people, whether it's co-founders, whether it's advisors, whether it's early investors in your company, you've got to find people that believe in you and believe in your vision, and don't let anybody else talk you into not believing in yourself, or don't let anybody be in a position where they can guide your business down a path that
they have too much impact, and then you're compromising on your values.
Yeah, so we've been incredibly fortunate, with Andy, Rebecca Lynn from Canvas Ventures, who led our Series A, and Jillian Munson from Uniscore Ventures, who led our Series B. With every round, it's been about, for us, when we think about fundraising, the first thing we think about is, okay, how do we create a list of people we want to reach out to, VCs, that we believe are mission aligned? And, that's, I get asked by VCs, hey, what do you look for in a VC or board member? My first response is always mission alignment. Yeah. Because the board, depending on who's on the board, can influence this organization in very negative ways. And we want to make sure that never happens.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you've chosen well. And I don't know the two other board members that you mentioned, but it sounds like they're both female, which I like to hear.
That's right.
Little diversity. I like that. And how are you thinking about diversity as it relates to your recruiting mission?
It's something we've just started to talk about internally just this week, more seriously. And, uh, candidly speaking, I think we have an issue at Possible today where our community within Possible doesn't quite represent the people, the customers that we serve. We have a disproportionately African American and Latinx customer base, and we're not doing enough in having those groups represented internally at Possible.
Yeah.
So, it comes down to, you can be the CEO of Wells Fargo and make a ridiculous statement and say that it's really hard to attract talent, diverse talent, because it's just hard to find them where they don't exist. I think that's certainly not the case. The talent exists, and we are committed to devoting more resources financially in order to create a more diverse organization that accurately or reflects the makeup of our customer base, so that there's representation of our customers within our organization. So we're very far off from where we want to be, and it's it's something that I'm pretty focused on.
Recognizing it, talking about it. None of us have the answers. We're very focused on it as well. We're putting a lot of rigor around training and development, around sourcing, and being able to present a diverse slate of candidates, make sure that it's representative of the actual community versus just, a certain subset. And it's definitely something that is like the North Star, but it's like just keeping disciplined around discussing it and making it a topic. Coming from the top down, I think, is really important. And I think it's great that you're putting more resources and time around it, because I think it'll definitely pay back just as far as diversity of thought and giving you a new perspective. So that's awesome. Well, I love what you're building. I would be super curious to know about you personally. Like, what are you liking to do right now? You said you're playing the guitar, you're learning, kind of strumming with your nubby little fingers.
I'm trying, right. Not going so well.
How are you like unwinding? We've got so much happening all at once. It's kind of the twilight zone right now. Plus you're building this rocket ship company, fundraising during this time. How are you just like checking out? Like, what do you do to just be like, I need my me time?
Yeah, I think it's making sure you create distance between work and personal life. And that's so much harder, as you know, with distributed work and everybody working from home. We actually made the decision to transition to fully distributed. And we have now team members from all across the globe. So really embracing, the permanence of work from home and thinking about it more long term. We basically said, hey, is this pandemic going to be over in 6 months, 9 months, a year? It may not be, and we cannot afford to be bad at building culture, to be bad at recruiting, to be bad at onboarding, to be bad at strategy in this environment. We have to get really good at it. And if we're going to invest our time and effort to get really good at it, we might as well just fully embrace it and commit to being a fully distributed company. Yeah. So for anybody interested out there who works in a different part of the world, and you're interested in our mission, now is a great time to join us because we're going to put the experience of distributed team members first. We're still maintaining an office here in Seattle, but it's been converted to a co-working space, and I've committed to not be in the office more than once a month, even though my apartment is literally a minute away from our office, just so I can experience the pains of working from home. And it has been a challenge. For me, it's just making sure when the time comes on the weekends to completely separate myself from my computer and to get out in the woods or just to completely unplug. And Sunday night or Monday morning, you're right back at it. You're fully engaged. You're able to focus on work. Make sure you got your routines down. But yeah, that separation is really important. And we've been trying really hard to not ping people on Slack after 5 o'clock every night, and not to ping people on the weekends, and just establishing some more boundaries for folks. And that's for me worked really well as well.
Yeah, I have heard also, we do a lot of recruiting around HR, and a lot of HR leaders that I get to talk to all the time are talking about putting resources and time and energy around mental health for their team members because it's such a crazy time and because people are feeling that burnout because of what you said. Like, not many leaders are thinking, let's not send Slack at 11 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so it sounds like you've got the winning formula in every way.
We're trying.
I'm super, super proud to know you. I'm really thrilled to learn about you and the business. And my ultimate question that I ask everyone is, what fuels you?
What fuels me? Being able to impact the world at scale in a meaningful way, and that makes the world a better place. And I think that's from teaching and seeing that in my family to what we're doing at Possible. I think that's what ultimately motivates me to keep on going. So I'm just super fortunate to be doing what I'm doing. It's a dream job. I can't imagine doing anything else, and I absolutely love the impact that we're having, especially during this trying time in America for lower income individuals. We're really excited about the opportunity ahead of us.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And thank you so much for joining the podcast. And we'll talk soon.
All right. Thank you, Shauna.
Thank you for listening to the What Fuels You podcast. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, Google Podcasts, or Spotify, and follow us on social media to keep up with the latest news and episodes. You can also contact us at podcast@fueltalent.com to provide feedback, ask questions, and share topics or guests you would like us to cover in the future. We hope you feel inspired by our guests and that we have helped fuel your day. Join us next time for another episode of What Fuels You.